Hi, Drennan with Protocol H2H. I want to build on the situation we were talking about before. This is the last video we talked about taking the leash off the dog. Basically, we want to get back to the beginning of that concept. Basically, we're going to talk about taking the leash off the dog and how that occurs segmentatively. It starts off with a willingness. There's a certain type of willingness you have to have. There's three kinds of willingness. There's willingness to accept that you need to train. Then there's willingness to train, and that means in terms of how you train. It's all about more formalized combative training and stuff. And then there's willingness to actually engage an opponent. So one puts you into a classroom, two has you training in that classroom in a combative manner, going in the ring in boxing or hard sparring in whatever martial arts you're doing that. But it's that third one, that third component of willingness to engage an opponent in real life, that is very, very different. Even if you go into a ring, you have a referee or you have a coach. You also, even in hockey fights, you have a referee that's there. No matter what format you're going into, if there's a third party standing right there who's willing to jump in and save your ass, you have not really gone all the way. Because once you enter into the world of street violence, at that point there is nobody to save you. There is nobody, there's no going back. And so once you've engaged that situation, you're obliged to finish it. And there's people who want to finish that real bad, if you understand what I'm saying, in terms of hurting you. So this is that third willingness. When we get to that third willingness, this is where we talk about taking the leash off the dog. Now the complication that comes here goes back again to the type of school we go to. There's martial arts schools all over the place now, and they all advertise self-defense. Confidence and self-defense. Very few of them actually produce real confidence, and very few of them actually produce real self-defense, because they don't go into that component of freeing your head and allowing yourself to become aggressive enough to take the fight to an opponent in that outdoor arena, the streets of violence. So what we have to talk about there is how to determine the difference of these schools. The main function is not the method. You could go back to a wushu instructor or a tai chi instructor. These are looking at the most passive martial arts you can think of in the general eye. But you get the right guy who knows the original styles and the original methodologies, he can show you some really heavy-duty stuff in regard to how to injure people. This is the same with a lot of the martial arts. Complication with those martial arts, of course, it takes a long time to learn. But if you learn that over the period of time you have, meaning that long time, and you have the right instructor that shows you how to use these in an aggressive format, you'll find that they're very, very aggressive, and given the ability to engage the opponent, they're very good. But again, it comes back to even those martial arts, regardless of whether it's Muay Thai or whatever, if you can't engage the opponent, then we get into that world of hesitation. And hesitation is where it comes down to the real confidence that you're going to be able to handle the situation in a real life event, not with referees and places where you can go, ooh, I'm hurt, I'm going to stop now. That doesn't engage in the real world. That's just a complication. That means you're going down most likely, or you're going to have to overcome it. One of those two things. So again, we go back to that concept of willingness and how you get there. What a lot of people don't understand is that the willingness is in every human at some level. It just depends on how they've been indoctrinated from, society and their own upbringing and their own judgments on these types of situations, their own experience. So these are the things. But what people expect is that their instructor is going to magically turn on a switch and pull them out. This is not true. An instructor will not be able to do that. The only way that you can get that willingness is by opening those doors yourself. As instructors, we have to have the skill and the knowledge base of how to bring you down that path so that you can open that door, so you have the tools to open that door, so you recognize the capabilities in yourself in a fashion that creates that confidence where you open up that door, where we talk about taking off the leash. Without that, you can't do it. So if I'm going to train you for sports, then you're going to have a sports mentality. If I'm going to train you for general health, you're going to have a general health mentality. Right now, we don't want to deal with the concepts of violence. There's a lot of people that don't want to talk about this, they don't want nothing about it, and this is not opening the door, this is the opposite form, because it's just keeping it back in some cloak of darkness where we really don't understand it. We don't understand how capable it can be, and how it can come into a real effect when you have proper technique with the proper mind frame. There's a wonderful movie out called The Story of Pi. And I like this story because of one thing. The whole movie goes along, and it's a fine movie, it's a wonderful movie, but at the very end there's one little scene where the gentleman who is Pi is sitting with a fellow who's spreading his life story. And he tells the story of where he is in a hospital, and representatives of the ship that sank, where Pi got off of, that's where he ends up in the lifeboat with the tiger, they ask him what went on, and he tells them the story of the tiger and the boat and all that. And they look at him, they basically tell him, well, that sounds like bullshit. And so he sits back and he says, okay. So he tells them another story, and he tells them a real version, a version that shows the human condition, where there are no animals in the boat, it's all humans, and one turns on the other, then turns on another, and then he himself has to become the tiger and kill the person who's killing everybody else. And it's ugly, it's very ugly. And so after he tells this very ugly story of the real side of humanity, the representatives write down the first story, and they leave with that. And he says to them, why, he says to the gentleman he's sitting with, why do you think they chose the first story? And the guy doesn't understand. And so he says, it's very simple. It's a more beautiful story. And that's the thing that comes into martial arts, because we want to hear beautiful stories. We want to hear beautiful stories about how we can become capable and how we can do all these things, but we don't want to look at that ugly side. If we don't understand the ugly side and our own capabilities within that world, we can't unlock that door and let ourselves be free to understand that circumstance and to handle that circumstance by letting our ability take control at that time. So that goes back to what we call the willingness, and the willingness to engage and taking the leash off the dog. Thank you very much.